Hey folks, I'm John Geating. I'm on the board or on the steering committee here for Open Wards Philly, and I'm going to be um, talking a little bit about the ward reorganization meetings tonight. Pat, Christmas, and I are kind of tag teaming this meeting here. We're both on child care duty tonight, so things could get a little hairy, but we've got some people here who could fill in. Um, and so we Open Words Philly had already done a meeting about the word reorganizations that you can take a look at. I'll share that in the chat here. For tonight, I wanted to go over it like a little bit, but I mainly wanted to make some time for Q&A and trying to I figured at this later stage people might be coming with some more specific questions that you might want to get answered.
Here so, with at least a few of our few of my colleagues.
Playing in the background that's very confusing. Pat is giving his child a bath. He is not on the meeting at the moment. So, all right. So, anyway, if you have specific questions that you want to get answered in this meeting, you could just post those in the chat, and we'll try to hit those. I'm just going to give you a brief overview of how things go. Personally, I've only been through two of these ward reorganization meetings. One was in the second ward in 2014. The other one was in the 18th ward in 2018. And they're very different. The one there was just it was very confusing. It was a little bit hard to understand as like a first-time participant what was going on. The second time I was a little bit more prepared for what was going to happen. But if you haven't yet, check out the section on ward reorganization in the rules of the Democratic Party here, and also a little primer with some links that some of us had put together that kind of shows some of the main points where things could go awry, or you might get confused as a first-time participant in this process. So just walking through it a little bit. So everybody, who here, just to like show of hands, just curious, who all was elected on in the election on last Wednesday? All right, great. So if you got elected, you're going to get in the mail a certificate of election that's going to come from the city. If you don't get that, you should contact the city commissioner's office because that's your ticket of admission into the ward reorganization meeting. It's going to happen next Monday, June 6th at 8 p.m. And the letter that you get is going to have the place of the meeting, the location for that, and you should make sure to get there, a little early. Make sure to get there a little early because if you're not there in the room, technically at 8 o'clock, they could close the door on you, and you're not going to be allowed in. So there's, in the past there's been some, people pulling some dirty tricks around the location and all that stuff. So just watch it and make sure that anybody else who who got elected knows where that is, because we've had some weirdness with the mail these past few years. So don't one thing to know about the certificate of election, you should not turn that in, depending on sort of how dicey of a meeting you're expecting. You may want to bring a photocopy of that and not the actual certificate, because in some cases in the past, I understand that people's certificates have been taken from them, and then it was used to deny that they had been like duly elected and able to vote. So that's a trick that sometimes could get pulled places. So basically, the last serving ward leader, once you get in there, you've got your certificate. The last serving ward leader presides over the seating of the new committee persons, the temporary appointments of acting secretaries, sergeant at arms, and tellers for the meeting, because somebody's got to take the notes and report out what's going on. And then they also preside over the election the next ward leader and the ward chair. And after that election of the next ward leader and ward chair, the ward chair presides over the election of the remaining officers. So you'll see there's like first chair, second chair, and a range of other positions that are on there that you'll also be able to vote for in addition to the ward leader. But that's an important distinction. So the new ward chair, taken over after those two elections. The other thing is that anybody, your contest needs to be resolved before you can go to the reorganization meeting, and only committee people are allowed to be in the reorganization meeting. So that's something that you sometimes see. People who are not elected committee people will be, inexplicably there, or I'm sorry, wait. Yeah, and and also there were a lot of open seats this past time. A ward leader cannot appoint somebody to one of the open seats in the interim between the election and the reorganization meeting. So some of these places, you might have had write-in candidates who won their spots, but some of them may still be open. Somebody can't just appoint people to those spots in the interim to affect the outcome of the reorganization. That's not allowed. And they also can't block people from being seated. So that's an interesting thing that happened. I believe back in the 2010 committee elections. Tracy Gordon, who is the current Register of Wills, was not. The party tried to not seat her to her committee person seat, and there was actually a body of case law that Irv Acklesberg, the attorney, used to get her back in. And the party was trying to deny. They were trying to say that basically they were a private club and sort of immune for that reason to having their bylaws challenged in court. But apparently, I'm not a lawyer, but past courts have found that because the party is involved in state action, it can't be hide behind that status as a private club. So bylaws have been upheld when challenged in court. So if you have any situation where duly elected people are being denied entry into the meeting, or trying to be denied that they were duly elected at all, there is a legally enforceable potential path there, depending on the circumstances. So that's important to know. Yeah, we'll go over some of the roles here in a bit. The party bylaw, just responding to a question in the chat, the party bylaws describe some of the duties of the various officers that you can brush up on. We've had some people join, so I will just share that in the chat again. And so anyway, so the open seats. You may know somebody who ran a write-in campaign. I definitely see a few people in this meeting who I know were write-in candidates. Some of you may have already been notified that you had won your elections, but those I think are still getting worked through. And then there were quite a few ties actually, and there are going to be there's going to be a tie-breaking meeting this Friday that's going to determine the results of some of those, which are going to be the ping pong ball in our friend the Horn and Heart Art can once again decided via random drawing. So for anybody who may be in that spot or know somebody who may be in that spot, they will actually be printing the certificates of election on site for the people in those tie-breaking races, because it's really cutting it close. I mean, it being tiebreakers on Friday, ward reorganization is on Monday. That's not a lot of time for a letter to get to somebody in there. So The city commissioners have said that they also can furnish those if for some reason somebody on site can't get them. But yeah, if you know anybody who's in that spot, I know there are at least a few. You should reach out to them with that info. So anyway, so um, the the way that the vote is going to go down for first for ward leader and then for ward chair. It's typically a roll call where they'll go through and call everybody's names, and you'll say you'll voice your vote. It's not a secret ballot. The bylaws do provide that if 2/3 of the members present decide on a secret ballot, you can use a secret ballot. But other than that, in most cases, it's going to be a roll call situation. So your vote's not a secret. Um, and then the other thing to know is that proxy votes are not allowed. You would actually need the committee to vote to allow proxy votes for those to be accepted, but otherwise the bylaws say that you can't do proxy votes. So that's one of the things that, like, if you're part of any kind of organized effort in any of these places, like, you need to, there could be a motion, confusing you early on to allow proxies. The ward leader may walk in with 8 or 10 uh, proxy votes committed that he wants to register, and you've got to say no proxies, objection. Um, you got to have like a few people willing to say that in the meeting. Otherwise, something could just happen if it's not challenged. People could try stuff. So that is the main stuff. I shared this other document with some of the main things, and to sorry, I'm looking up in the chat here. Somebody was asking what the ward chair does. That is, all the positions are defined in there. So, I'll just read through them here. The ward leader is tasked with representing the ward at meetings of the county Democratic Committee. So, they have both a local ward function and they're a representative of the ward to the city Democratic Party. And then the ward chair is the executive officer of the ward and is more tasked with the administrative business. And then you've got a first, second, and third vice chair position. It's not specified in the bylaws that they have any specific role, but they can be assigned specific leadership functions on the committee. The third chair, I believe, is officially tasked with like youth outreach in the Democratic Party. So there's, take a look at that. And then there's a secretary, an assistant secretary who take minutes and handle ward correspondence. And then there's a treasurer and assistant treasurer handling the finances and financial reporting. So, one thing to know about this, I think it's supposed to be all wards. I don't know if it's all wards, but you're supposed to have a state PAC that's associated with this, which is subject to all the usual state and local PAC reporting requirements. So, not all wards file campaign finance reports, and you don't get in the most trouble in the world if you don't do it. But that's supposed to be how things are. So the treasurer is really like the treasurer of a state PAC that is responsible for all that stuff, which is, just something to know if you're somebody who is thinking about going for that. So I don't know. I think that's covering most of it. But I would like to hear questions from people so that we can try to get those answered and not waste your time here. All right, let's go back through.
I'll ask a question.
Yeah.
So what are your like recommendations for if you like roll up, like the ward leaders following like no rules? Like, is there anything that new committee people, ways you might approach that? Do you have any thoughts or recommendations?
Yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit about this at the last meeting. I mean, I think that one key is being organized. Know who you're working with there. I mean, I think there are like varying, levels of organization happening in different places, but like you may be part of a team there. And I think that the key is, you need to be able to, um, like Robert's rules may or may not be respected in different wards. Like I think, don't underestimate the extent to which this is kind of a power play. Like it's not like a strictly sort of like professional meeting. Like people's like ability to like make a ruckus in the moment when like somebody's trying to break the rules is key. You need to have like 4 or 5 people being willing to say I object when you know BS motions get thrown up, or being able to say that's against the rules, or that's you need to have like a few people like kind of ready to go and anticipate things that might happen. But the point is like you have to know the rules, and like everybody should just really read through those rules. They're like there's some vague stuff, but like it's fairly clear about a lot of things. And knowing the rules and knowing what's dishonest and being able to name that and being able to name it in a way that brings other people along rather than alienating them when you raise these objections. Like I think sometimes some of these things can come off as like partisan or like team sports kind of stuff, but like some of it's just like the rules are clear and you're just like refereeing the rules. And if the more you can be specific and point to rules and not make it about personalities and teams and stuff like that, the more successful you're going to be.
I have a follow-up question specifically. I'm just curious, John, if you've heard too of other, our ward reorg meeting is evidently going to be people can be in person or attend on Zoom, which is interesting. Particularly, I'm not sure if our ward leader is going to check people's certificates. We're not obviously going to recognize everyone. We haven't seen anyone in person for so many years. Yeah. So like, I'm like just curious if other people are experiencing this, like if you think that's permitted, and just raising it as a fun little thing I've been thinking about because I got the email.
Has the party okayed that?
I mean, we apparently are allowed to meet in person now. So I think so people can meet in person at city committee headquarters, and a Zoom link was sent for people who can't attend in person, which we've never allowed proxy or remote until obviously COVID. So yeah, it's interesting. We've never done a hybrid model of ward meetings that I'm aware of.
Vanessa, the letter, it's the 5th ward, which I'm in also. Mike Boyle's letter said that city committee had amended the rules to allow for Zoom. So I didn't look at that independently, but that's what he referenced.
Oh, I thought he said that we could meet in person again, but okay. But still, like, how is it? I like wonder how they're gonna check certificates, or like how know who these people are. I don't know. Well, funny business.
Yeah, that's the first time I'm hearing of that. That's easy. All right.
Yeah.
Well, more to be continued on that. Anybody else get a notice of a virtual hearing?
No, I haven't heard anything, but it was only this past weekend that I heard from my ward leader for the first time in over 2 years. So I was surprised to find out we're actually going to have a physical location for our reorganization meeting.
Yeah, this is all news to me. That's interesting. All right, well, we'll see if we can get the opinion on that or any notice about it. Okay, yeah. Sorry, Beth Finn points out that the city ethics office, if you are considering going for one of the treasurer roles, they run regular trainings for PAC treasurers. So don't let that be too daunting of a reason to not pursue that. If you're thinking about it, you can get training for that. Okay. Other questions.
This is my first time here, so maybe this has been addressed. Apologies, but there's I see in the doc there's something about with the 2/3 vote, you can have a secret ballot. Has that Has that been done before in various awards? Is there extensive precedent of that? And I guess I know it's kind of like a who shows up and makes a ruckus, but like presumably that's like in order before anything happens. Anyone can stand up and make a motion in a second, and that should be something that the ward leader should then, the acting ward leader should then have a vote on immediately once someone makes that motion.
Yeah, you have to make a motion and somebody's gotta second it. I don't know. Anybody here know if there's any precedent for that happening in recent history? Yeah, I had not heard about it. Pat, do you know?
Yeah, not that I can think of. Good question.
Yeah, all right. We'll try to figure that out. John.
Can you hear me? There is some discussion about the secret ballot being prohibited by both the state Dems and the National Party. I have not been able to find clear information. That is kind of the guidance, is that it even if you could change the rule locally in the ward or at the county level, that there are potentially state and national restrictions on that. Again, I haven't been able to find them. I haven't really looked all that hard, but that is what people are putting out there. So, and those are apparently new rules telling voters how to vote. Your vote should not be, should not be a secret ballot.
Yeah, it seems like kind of a long shot to get 2/3 of anybody.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, John. Other questions?
I have a question. This is Dee Dukes. I'm from the Winfield section of Philly, and I just became a new committee person in the 52nd Ward, 24th Division. So it was a long time coming. They challenged me the first time and knocked me off the ballot, but this time I was a little smarter. I made sure I had enough signatures where that didn't happen. So a few things. One is one of the committee people was uninvited to a ward meeting. So that's an issue. And so I'm a little concerned myself because I don't know if I'm terribly liked as a community leader, don't care. So I want to make sure that that's not something that can happen. And if it is something that happens, what should I do about it at the time? And then next question is, are there any, I know that there are bylaws, but I'm asking because I'm not sure if there's bylaws, and I want to know if there's bylaws that I can get my hands on prior to this ward meeting, and or some, I know we're talking about the procedure and what things can happen, but I want it somewhere in writing that I can refer to it so that I can study it and I can know exactly what's going to happen at this ward meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Dee. Yeah, absolutely. I just put that in the chat. I don't know if you can see the link to that, but it's a link to the PDF of the party bylaws. Some
Okay.
have additional bylaws, kind of layered on top of that. You're not allowed to do anything at the ward level that contradicts, the state party. You can kind of add stuff on top, but you can't like directly contradict anything on there. Anyway, I don't know that the 52nd ward has anything in place like that, but
Okay.
But what I posted is just the most recent edition of the city committee bylaws that are kind of the baseline for all this stuff.
Perfect. Okay. I am on my phone. It took me forever to get in, so it's not going well on my phone. If I put my email in the chat, is it possible for you to email me what you just sent me in the chat? Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Because I think just in case I get disconnected, because I'm not really operating this phone thing too well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll email that.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and put my
We'll send it to you very shortly.
Yeah. All right.
I think there's also a link on our website under the resources tab for people who are interested. Yeah.
I just put it in the chat.
Yeah, so you can always Google Open Wards Philadelphia, and the resources tab has a lot of great stuff, including Open Wards bylaws for once you all get elected ward leader, you can adopt them for your ward.
Very good. Okay. Other questions? Robert has his hand up next. Robert?
Yeah, I just wanted to know, we had a three-way race and I came in second, and I just wasn't sure if I was a committee person or not. I didn't know it because they said pick two or vote for two. I don't know if anybody could clarify that.
Let me check.
Yes, if you came in second, you will be receiving a certification letter. So okay. I would expect that you'd probably get it tomorrow because I got mine today.
Okay.
As long as it's not a tie.
No, it's not a tie. I came, like I said, the person that won had 24, I had 22. So I just didn't know because there was a line underneath when I look at the website. So I didn't know if that meant I was an alternate or what it meant.
You're good.
Robert, you won. So
all right, thanks. Just making sure. I didn't want to show up and be embarrassed, you know.
Yeah, you're gonna get that certificate. It's gonna be great. Nice if you don't. Jamie, I believe you were next.
So if the ward leader is not an elected committee person, do they get a vote?
No. They would preside over the first two elections for ward leader and for ward chair, but then the new ward chair would take over. They would have to physically exit the meeting.
John, that's actually not quite right. There is a provision to stay for the duration of the meeting.
Where do you see that, John?
It's in the bylaws. It says that the outgoing remain through the meeting. They can't really deliberate, but they are allowed to stay in their room.
Yeah, so I remember reading that.
I can look it up for you.
Yeah, but they can't vote, Jamie, is your question.
No, they cannot.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah.
Do you know, I'm curious about that amendment that allows for call-in votes in addition. Is that formalized in writing anywhere, or has that been like filed in any kind of legal way?
Yeah, you have as much info as I do at this point, so I don't know, but I'm going to be real curious about the written, adoption of that and everything. That seems ripe for abuse. Absolutely. Louise?
The ward leader in my ward said that the only item of business in this ward reorganization is election of the officers. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's an option to add more business, but that would be the standard. Yeah, it would just be the election of officers. Any other questions?
Hey, John, I have a question. This is Tom. Okay. Is someone who maybe has been through this before, and you may not have a chance in your particular ward to usurp the ward leader or anything. Are there any things that we should be thinking about trying to do in this initial reorg committee meeting, getting one person elected the vice chair, or any particular position we should try to secure if you're not going to be able to take over the whole thing?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I might kick it to Vanessa to talk a little bit about what happened in the 5th Ward last time, because my recollection of what happened there was that people were pretty organized around the first 2 or 3 spots on the list, but after that there weren't a lot of strong preferences, and so to my point about having at least some kind of vocal contingent at some of these. A few people were able to get elected to the executive committee who you know, there might not have been like the numbers like initially, but just like being willing to put themselves out and have, you know, some support behind them, we're able to get a few of those spots. I don't know, Vanessa, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I'd be happy to. I was planning to bring this up to give a little pep talk to anyone who is potentially interested in getting involved with their executive or their ward committee in a leadership position. So as John mentioned, so I was a newly elected committee person, the 5th Ward, 4 years ago, and we had a pretty good contingency. I can't remember how many people we got in right now off the top of my head, but we got a lot of new folks in. And so we definitely did some organizing and some vote whipping prior to our meeting. We had meetings beforehand. I will say one of my largest regrets was that we did not try to run anyone as ward leader. We were not savage enough. So I recommend that you go in and be as brave and courageous and savage as you can be, because these are positions of great power that people often just get because no one will run against them and they're nervous. But I very much regretted 2 months later when our ward leader selected our state representative with 4 other ward leaders that we did not even try. They have a lot of power. And so if you are interested, I really encourage you to run, put your name in the hat. The worst thing that can happen is that you lose. There are a few of us on this call who have run for office and lost. You will survive. This is not public, so there will only people who will know are your fellow committee people that you lost, but it's worth trying because you don't know what will happen. What happened in our ward reorg was that we came in with a slate of many of the other officer positions, but not ward leader, because our strategy was, oh, maybe we could take out more of the positions by not trying to challenge the ward leader, which kind of worked, but the ward leader is like the most important person. So I think it was kind of helpful. Most of our people, I think we got like elected, end up moving out. So it didn't end up helping us in the long run, to be honest, as far as I can tell. So I would say if you can find a candidate, like go for it. This is a democracy. People should have choices. I always believe in that. But it does require advanced planning, organization, understanding of the rules, and making sure that you have those people to make the objections if the rules are not being followed. Yeah, so there's my try to pump people up speech. That's the best I got.
Thanks, Vanessa. You know, it's absolutely right. There's like this is an interesting time in between the election and the reorganization. I would imagine many of you are getting a lot of phone calls from people, perhaps from the current ward leader or people who are running for officer positions, and try to get connected to that stuff because there's a lot of interesting work that's that goes on in the 3 weeks in between there, and you want to be in the mix for that rather than on the outskirts. We have a decent amount of contact info for people out there. If you're not yet so connected to people running in your ward, and you want to be, feel free to shoot us an email at openwardsphilly@gmail.com, and we can try to get you plugged in with other people locally. Yeah, I don't know. Any other thoughts or questions from people? Any other experiences from these meetings that anyone would like to share from 2018 or before?
Vanessa, what was that position again you were speaking about?
Oh, for ward leader?
Ward leader, okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to write it down. Okay. This is Tiffany.
Oh, hello. Unsurprisingly, my ward leader has not been banging down my door to talk to me, if you can imagine.
So I have a question. Well, if you elect a new ward leader, but all the other positions are the people that were there before, do you accomplish anything?
It depends, I mean, I think so. Like the premise of this group, Open Wards Philly, right, is that like we're interested in open processes. We're interested in commitment to running the ward like any halfway decent organization where the board members get a vote on things and it's more than just one person's call on all the important stuff. Because we're all directly elected on the ballot by our neighbors, and the ward leader is actually not on the ballot, directly. And so there's an important role to play, and I think getting somebody in the top job who believes in that could be huge. But you're right, there's got to be a culture around that stuff. At our last meeting, Karen Bojar was saying that she worked in as a committee person in the 9th Ward, which had kind of the longest running kind of culture of open sort of small d democracy there, and she was saying that the politics have been very rough at times, and there are certainly a lot of as in any local political organization, a lot of interpersonal conflicts and longstanding beefs and stuff like that. But because there was a culture of commitment to voting and respecting the voting process and everything, a lot of the openness of the org was not one of the points of conflict among people, as much. And so I think that's kind of to your point about does one person matter? No, it's but a few people committed to running a different type of organization could be powerful.
Yeah, but I will just also say, having a ward leader that sets the tone that they're going to follow Robert's Rules of Order, that they're going to be inclusive, that they're going to consult the committee people who are elected by the constituents of the ward, definitely would set a tone. And I think these are all great principles for folks who are interested in running to say that they care about, that they care that when you have endorsement meetings that you vote in a way that is explained in advance so that it's fair and people understand the rules that they're voting on, can definitely, I think, set a tone. And I mean, even if you, and unfortunately, there's many wards where the ward leader is not consulting the committee people and they are making a lot of these huge decisions on their own. So I think it is a very powerful position. Hopefully it's used for good and run the ward in an open way that increases turnout and encourages people to be involved in the democratic process, including the committee people themselves. So I think it's pretty important and can make a really huge difference.
Somebody asked.
Yeah, sorry, just to clarify my question, which is, if your ward doesn't have meetings because the ward leader doesn't call meetings, can someone else just say, hey, we should have a ward meeting so we can actually organize and do things? So John Scott is saying, if the ward leader doesn't call meetings, then Bob Brady would call them for our ward? There's a mechanism for that?
So you're talking about, Kim, just to clarify, are you talking about the reorganization meeting?
No, just ward meetings in general.
Yeah, I don't think.
I'm sorry, I'm talking about the reorg only.
Okay, I know that's what we're supposed to be talking about at this, and I'm sure that the reorg meeting will happen, but just in general, I'm curious. If there's time to discuss that. If there's not, I understand.
I think Michael's got something to say about that from his experience. Yeah, Michael.
Yeah, there are rules in the city committee rules, all 45 pages, talking about committee people have the option of requesting a special meeting. I forget how many people have to sign a petition, but it is written out. Committee people can call for a special meeting.
All right, so I should just study the bylaws and find that out if I desire.
Yeah. But Michael and some of the other folks involved here have had I would say a pretty successful group that's been organized kind of adjacent to the ward. They got kind of shut out. I think it would be fair to say from official ward business, but have kind of continued to organize a faction. I think that can be good too if you don't have an outright majority. Presumably there's at least a handful of people, maybe even a handful of people on this Zoom who agree there should be meetings in the 31st ward. So yeah, lots to discuss. To the point about this being kind of an interesting influx time in between the elections, I think just in case it's not obvious, when people are asking for your support for ward leader and other positions, like this is really the best time to be making the open wards ask of the people who want leadership positions. You know, as a condition for your support, ask them to support these things and like try to get, you know, some bylaws in place pretty early on, because you know those commitments can kind of soften the more time goes by. But yeah, you've got more leverage than you ever have right in this moment. So you know, use it if people are asking you for stuff. Other questions?
I might suggest, Kim, to the purpose of your question. I mean, after these reorg meetings and we kind of see how things have shaken out, you're sure there's going to be plenty more to talk about, because there's kind of a spectrum of wards closed to open, and right now, and there will be after this election too. And you know, we want to make sure that regardless of what sort of ward you're in, you have an opportunity to do the work in a way that you want to. Because you know, there's some folks who have been just in their division on their own for many years doing their thing.
Yeah. No, I mean, so the bylaws, there's like the calling a special meeting versus regular meetings. If you just don't have regular meetings, is any other meeting considered a special meeting?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure, John. Michael, thoughts on that? I mean, if the person's not holding any meetings at all, it sounds like in that circumstance, like you're gonna, you know, the open ward caucus, you know, model that Mike Swayze and other folks have done up there in the 22nd, or I mean, there have been organizations that set up outside of the ward committee altogether, you know, to do announcements in GOTV. But yes, it sounds like and these are the points that John and Vanessa made earlier, if like the power like hasn't been pried loose into the hands of folks who are going to use it appropriately, or if it just hasn't been distributed amongst a bunch of folks appropriately, then yeah, these mechanisms like to force meetings on any sort of regular basis, I would imagine be pretty tough.
Yeah, especially if you have to get 2/3 of people to agree. So like, it's kind of set up to fail.
Yeah. Bylaws do bias certain outcomes. Todd. Sorry, Todd, we gotta unmute you here. There you go.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out the basics here, and I'm listening to Kim's questions. Should we expect a regular meeting? I mean, even if it's once or twice a year with our ward leader and as committee people, or are there some wards that just never meet and only get together on demand of the ward leader when it's time to pass something that the ward leader's doing? I mean, what's the interaction? You know, you shouldn't have to have I don't think you should have to have a called meeting as if there's some big emergency. It should be something that you expect to do as a committee person.
Also, it's in the bylaws that wards are supposed to meet monthly, but you know, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, no, it's like more of it's treated as more of a suggestion, and like some wards, you know, our ward has a monthly business meeting, and I know a bunch of other ones do too, and then you know some, you know, only meet around election time, if you know, if you could even really call it a meeting. It's a whole spectrum, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, it can be tough to be in a position like that. I think you're hearing, you know, from a number of people here who are in that spot, and I hope, you know, don't have a great answer, but I hope that this group can kind of be a resource. You know, you can be resources to each other about how best to operate. You know, when that's kind of the situation you have. What ward are you in, Todd?
Lordy, hang on a minute. Hang on a second. I'm on the other screen. 34th Ward. I am not the committee person yet. Okay. I stepped back away from it. Health things. I look like Frankenstein under the shirt, but that's okay.
Sorry to hear that.
Okay. Another question, though, if I may, if I'm allowed. When the reorganization meeting, the reorg meetings happen, is that the time to bring up, hey, should we be meeting quarterly or something? You know, to actually put something on the table. Because I mean, a monthly committee meeting, I can't make such a thing. I mean, I could, but I don't see me doing it. Not with not with the amount of stuff I'm already doing in my life. But if to set something up like that, so just to get people's feedback, even with the ward leader there, hey, should we meet quarterly? If we do, where? What should we expect from the meeting? What should it be like? Where can we contribute to the action and make sure that we're representing our neighbors or whatever? Make some sort of interaction, but put the ward leader on the spot to say, yes, that's all good and let's make that happen, or no, go screw.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's in the presentation of it. I mean, I think that you're right that this is the time to be having those kind of conversations or getting, those kinds of commitments from people. There's definitely a peer pressure element to it. If you bring it up and that really seems like a good idea to a lot of people, then maybe you can make it happen. I mean, one thing just to bring up, I know one of the tactics used by ward leaders in some of the more closed wards is really keeping there from being a central contact sheet of everybody, making it difficult for individual committee people to get in touch with all the other committee people about things. And if that's happening, it's pretty hard to organize in that case. But if you can I don't know, you got to feel it out, but yeah, right. Kim says take a picture of the sign.
Picture.
If you could even maybe pass around a contact sheet, with name and email in that meeting and get a picture of that, then you could be, off to the races and having some more facility to kind of organize within the ward with other committees.
But even that, isn't that the kind of question one can bring up at the upcoming meeting?
Yeah.
I would say, Todd, the answer to your question is elect a ward leader who is going to run on the basis that they will have the amount of meetings you want, that will give you access to having the sign-in sheet. I mean, we literally had to sneak pictures of the sign-in sheet at our ward reorg. So I think we're being extremely naive and very passive. No, you should elect ward leaders who will actually hold meetings, who will care about what committee people think and not hide each other's emails, and who will give you a list of who the actual committee people are, which I do not even possess. I could not tell you who all the committee people, well, right now I can, but that is going to change a year from now. These are the type of people we should be electing, because these folks hold on to these positions and it's power. They are gripping power to elect and appoint state representatives. It's huge. So they are going to hold on to that with a vice grip. And they may, yeah, sure, we'll have more meetings. Yeah, I'll give you access. Oh yeah, we're gonna have a voting, get out the vote committee. We did not have any of that stuff. No.
But confronted with a smile in a room full of other committee people and asking those
that they
questions.
Don't have to ever see again.
Well,
they'll never email you.
Hey, when we're doing neighborhood stuff, how do we access the list so we can get in touch with everybody and let them know we're having the big barbecue or whatever, and get it and ask in front of everybody.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think that there's a window here to do that. And yeah, Vanessa, I'm sorry to approach that question as though from a defensive crouch as though we've already lost. But yeah, no, that's there is a moment when you can maybe kind of bring some people along with you and make something happen just through charisma in these moments. We got D and Wayne Morris had asked, when are we going to get the reorganization letters? I believe that wait, when's the election getting certified? Is that tonight? I thought it was happening tonight. It's happening this week, and then those are going to go out. Did anybody get theirs yet? Yeah, I didn't get mine. I think it's going to be a few days still. But if you were in a tie, the tiebreaker meeting is on Friday, and they'll be printing out the election certificates for people in that spot. In that,
I received mine.
Yeah. Sorry, and I didn't answer Jamie's question before about what happens if there's a tie in the ward leader race. Does anybody know what happens if there's a tie?
Go to a second ballot.
Can you say more about that, Michael? Do you know what that entails?
Well, state rules say that we go by Robert's Rules of Order. City committee rules don't even mention Robert's Rules of Order, but if you're going by parliamentary procedure, it would only make sense that you would have a second ballot. Now, if at the beginning of the meeting, you want to make up rules about how the election takes place, you could try to have a discussion. You could maybe discuss, for example, well, there's 3 candidates, and if we don't get a majority, let's have a second ballot. You know, very often what the ward leader will say is that whoever gets the most votes wins. You know, and usually they're not challenged. So it depends so much on the ward leader, how they want to conduct the business. But if people want to raise their issues, at the beginning of the meeting is the time to do it. And so everyone can be on, you know, common ground.
Guy, you're up next.
And I apologize if this was asked already. Is there a particular amount of a stipend that the committee people get? So that's the first question. And the second, oh God, and the second question was, is the date of June 6th the date of the meeting for all committee people everywhere? Okay, perfect. So is there a particular stipend amount that the committee people get?
No, it varies. Well, it varies, based on the election cycle. You know, primary and general could be different, and then it also varies by ward. It's like not the case that, you know, committee people in, you know, the 18th ward here and committee people in the 52nd will get the same amount of money each time. And I don't know anything about what, you know, what the process is for figuring that out. Anybody else have a window into that stuff?
And does anyone mind sharing the range if they don't want to share exactly? If you could share, like, I'm just curious because you're there for a zillion hours. So I'm just curious.
Yeah, John's got his hand raised. John, tell us about street money.
Yeah, so normally the city committee puts out about $100 per committee person per election. So both the primary and the general, and that should flow to the committee person. There are times when, if you have an endorsement that doesn't match the city committee's endorsements, the money that the city committee gets from those candidates does not come back to the ward. There's other times where your ward may raise a lot more money on the side. And so you know, there's discretion on the ward's part as to how much of that, you know, money actually reaches the committee person, but nominally it's $100 per person per election. And usually the check from the city committee, you know, my ward had 19 divisions, and the check has recently always been $3,800.
And is this,
You know, there's exceptions to that, but that's.
And I see your hand, Michael, probably for a similar, is it somewhere where this information is public information that we can find? And also, last question is, what about when you're distributing information within your community? Is there any type of funds available to assist committee people with doing the work before the election day?
Great question. I mean, I'll dive in first. I mean, as far as any sort of disclosure around the amount of money, I mean, the city committees and the wards that spend money, I mean, are supposed to have political action committees that disclose how much is spent. I don't think it's not going to be itemized like per committee person, but that's going to be one record of the money. And I'm sorry, what was the second question you had there?
And then is there monies available, money or whatever, for committee people to do their job before the election?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, I welcome any thoughts or feedback from the rest of the group here. I mean, as far as I would know, like the money comes in at the last minute, yeah, just to do like election day stuff. But other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just usually, I think, at the discretion of the ward leader. Like we convinced our ward leader to do text banking and do like a text message, and he's done that a couple of times. But I don't know that we get, and they give us literature and things to hand out. But I don't know. That's not really a big part of what we do. I don't think, at least we get some money on election day, and that's pretty much it, I think.
There's generally not much source of funding for that type of thing. The money that comes into the ward, either in most cases comes in from city committee fundraiser for street money, or from individual candidates. Sometimes wards will ask candidates who are seeking the endorsement of the ward to contribute to some, a fundraiser or something else to the ward. And then those monies can be available for printing and that kind of thing. They're generally not handed out to the individual committee people, though. They're generally, when they're used like that, excuse me, they're used to print something on behalf of the entire ward, which then the committee people have access to.
Okay. And this is the same kind, and this is my last one. Can a committee person, right, the same idea, can a committee person have a political action political action group where they do additional outreach to the community, to their constituents? Is that allowed?
Yeah, I mean, under like using the name
an outside back, why not?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, using the name what, John?
I think I think the answer is yes, unless you get into like, are you using the name of the ward as like the group that is being, on the label for that stuff. I think that would be, they might object to that there, but once you're independently elected now, so you can use this position to kind of represent however way you want, so go
awesome.
get it.
Thanks so much for all the
I don't know who was up next, Vanessa or Michael. Vanessa, do you wanna go first? Sorry, Michael.
I think Michael was up.
Oh, okay, Michael. Yep, and it's 8:01, so let's do these in a hurry, and then we'll.
Okay. In terms of how much committee people get, wards get different amounts. My ward typically has gotten $5,800 from the city committee. All of these transactions are available on the campaign finance reports. I like to scrutinize them. So, for example, during the November 2020 election, committee people got anywhere from $100 to $600, which was given to our former ward leader. And different people get different amounts. And these things are all available in campaign finance reports.
Vanessa, last question.
Vanessa Fields or Vanessa McGrath?
Vanessa Fields.
Oh,
Vanessa
okay.
number 2, the one in our hearts.
So I was going to say that I'm in the 52nd ward, and we get $100 to give out sample ballots on election day. I have had my own events here in the division, meet the candidates night, the importance of voting, what folk do. I take the money out my own pocket and pay for everything. So I just want to add it.
Yeah, that's great. And so far, I'll say like one of the sort of practical objections that you hear from people to the open wards thing is that like, oh, if you endorse too many people who, don't go with, the way of the party endorsement, like you're not going to get the money and you're going to have all these problems like fundraising. So far, there is absolutely no evidence whatsoever that open wards have had any harder of a time fundraising than some of the other places. Like it's, when you're more active, when you got more people out there, doing retail marketing of your organization, like you're going to raise more money. absolutely. And the more, it has to do with how cohesive are you and how much can your ward, turn out the vote and turn out people to these petition parties and to like other functions and stuff. Like if you get organized, you're going to get just fine fundraising, and don't let anybody tell you that this is like jeopardizing your effectiveness or something like that. It's nonsense.
John, could you quickly address Kim's comment about opposing candidates endorsed by the party?
Oh, yeah. So
and we also should note that we may be referencing the Democratic Party quite often, but there's similar things on both sides. So we are a nonpartisan organization. I just want to say.
Yeah, I mean, this has just as a general point, like, I think it's this came up because of like the Working Families Party, campaign for Kendra Brooks in the general election, where like, she wasn't a Democrat, so this was. And the bylaws say, kind of give the party, a good amount of latitude to kick you out if they find that you're supporting non-democratic candidates. And so, the at-large race, there's kind of like this like wink-wink situation where like all 5 Democrats are definitely going to win. There's no chance that like Kendra Brooks would have like knocked off a Democrat. And so the real race was between like David O, a Republican, and Kendra Brooks, who was like closer to a Democrat, arguably, than David O. Well, we could debate that, but the point was just that like it was kind of selectively employed to like maybe go after sort of like liberal supporters of Kendra Brooks, but like then I think you had like Janie Blackwell like endorse David O like explicitly at an event, but suffer no reprisals from the party for doing that. So it's just like a funny sort of thing where it's like you got to remember that you're like a Democratic elected official, and you got to kind of tread lightly with like endorsing non-democratic approved candidates. And I think the Working Families Party is going to run Kendra and Nick again on their ballot line, so this is going to be like an interesting thing once again in 2023.
So they can actually kick you out of the part.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, check out.
I wanted to make sure you heard that, Dee, because if they already have their eyes, on you, they're gonna try to find something.
Oh my God.
These folks are ruthless. Give them hell, everyone.
All right. Well, we're gonna wrap up there. But you can email us at openwordsphilly@gmail.com. We know this is crunch time. There might be some last minute questions that come up. Don't hesitate to reach out. We don't have all the answers, but we do know some of the people who can find them, and feel free to use us as a resource in the last less than a week here before these meetings.
Thank you guys for everything that you do. These meetings are so tremendously helpful and educational. Please keep doing what you do, and whatever I can do, and I'm sure other folks feel the same way, we can do to help and push the word. We're going to continue to do it. Nice seeing you, Pat Christmas, and all of you guys. Thank you again for everything you do on behalf of the committee persons and everybody else. Have a good night.
Thank you, Dee, and thanks everybody.
Thank you.